Okay, I think that solved the problem. Okay, so the sense that, in the Yoga Sutra, there's a sutra that talks about that the pain of the future can be avoided, that this is one of the gifts of learning to cultivate our practice, is that with a sense of presence, being in our bodies in the moment at hand, we start to really sense when things are not quite right. And, procrastination is one thing where we just are avoiding something for that we need to do. And procrastination can show up in a task that we're avoiding, but it can also show up in anything else that we're avoiding. It can be a whisper in a joint in our body that's talking to us and we're just not listening, not listening. So we can avoid the way our bodies speak to us. We can avoid the way our minds speak to us. We can avoid having to have conversations with other people, not even just in our own minds. So there's a lot of things that avoidance can cultivate more suffering. And when we avoid something, usually it snowballs into something bigger. That a lot of times, either it actually gets bigger, like, the snowstorm last weekend is a good example. If you avoided shoveling, then if you only shoveled once, you had to shovel, a foot and a half of snow. Whereas if you just kind of didn't procrastinate and went out there 2 or 3 times, it was an easier task so as not to avoid. So sometimes actually avoiding can increase the task at hand, but sometimes it's just the matter of the mind that when we're avoiding something, it snowballs into something bigger and bigger and bigger than if we just put our mind to it. And this can happen in our emotional states too, where if we just keep putting something onto the back burner that we're not dealing with, our mind can blow this thing up to be so much more of a problem than it actually is. And the journey begins with one step. So sometimes when we are having avoidance in dealing with something, all we have to do is just decide we're going to take a step, and then the next step can lead to the other step. And oftentimes we find that the task at hand is usually not as big as we thought it would be, and we have the capacity to face our challenges head on. So the kleshas, the causes of our suffering in yoga, this is one of the main ones, is this sense of avoiding what we don't want to look at, whether it's a task or a person or something within our own spirit. Avoidance creates suffering. So learning to not procrastinate, learning to not avoid can be a real gift. And this is what that sutra of the pain of the future can be avoided is really about. And in the past, when I've talked about this sutra in class with you all, I've kind of given the idea of like, what would your 100-year-old self tell you? What advice would your 100-year-old self give you? And we can use that as a really good, everyone knows the feeling of, I wish I could not go back, but I wish I could give advice to my 10-year-old self, 20-year-old self, 30-year-old self, however old you want to give advice to. And the same will be for our future selves to give advice to this moment right now. So go ahead and sit up straight and tall and close your eyes and take stock of maybe something that there's a pain that you can avoid in the future by not avoiding something today. It could be in the mind, it could be in the body, it could be in relationships, it could be with money, it could be with your job, it could be with something that's broken in your house. It doesn't matter what it is. But see if there's something that you are avoiding. And notice when you land in it, when you kind of settle on that thought, what happens in your body? Is there tension somewhere in the avoidance? Are you creating a bigger snowball of tension in your mind or body because of the avoidance? Is there a sense of guilt or shame attached to avoidance? So just notice what's here. And one of the main gifts that we can use in our practice to help us work with the difficulties around avoidance is to learn how to sit in presence. The more we cultivate the capacity to be here now, the less we have the urge to avoid. So come into that tapas, that discipline of being able to sit within the moment, even if it's an uncomfortable one. What does it feel like right now to drop into that state of presence, to notice what's here? To feel a sense of yielding. This is another gift that helps us with our presence. To drop into the earth, to feel the earth respond and support us. And then to drop into the breath. Yielding and breath are two huge gifts of cultivating presence. Find yourself feeling on the inside, feeling the breath, feeling whatever sensations you have, acknowledging both the inner and outer states. So the inner states of sensation in the body, sensation in the emotions, thoughts in the mind, and also the outer states. Here you are on this beautiful day. Snow is outside. What's the temperature of your room? How's your space around you? So allow yourself to dip into the presence of the inner space and the outer space. Come into your breath. Place your palms together at your heart and bow. Offer this practice to help you with cultivating presence, to not overwhelm yourselves by the task that might take long and be arduous, but the presence of this step, this breath, one thing at a time. And let's release the hands and come onto your back. All right, so as you find yourself, as always, when we come into our practice in the beginning, we have this beautiful lie down. Okay, so can you feel the difference when you come supine? Can you feel the yielding into the earth? Can you feel the spaciousness in your joints? Is there something lovely about the gift of just lying your body down on the ground for a moment? Notice the breath change when you are in a horizontal plane. Let your joints feel like they're so spacious, like up in the sky, spacious, in a deep pond, spacious, any kind of spacious that feels good to you. And just come into the presence of this moment, this breath, your body resting on the ground. And if there is, niggles of tension and avoidance and mind games, just see if you can keep bringing yourself back over and over to the breath and to the yielding. Reach your arms overhead, let the nervous system respond, have a little bit of invigoration. All right. And then bring your knees into your chest and rock around a little bit and sway from side to side. Feeling into the sacrum, the sacroiliac joints, the low back. All right, and then let's pull the knees apart from each other and swing them back in. Go on a trajectory of movement that's very comfortable for your hip joints. See what it feels like to notice what's your range of motion, what's available in this moment here. It might change as you practice, but what's available here right now. All right, great. And then put your feet on the floor, arms spread out like a T, and drop your knees from one side to the other. And just enjoy the feeling of rocking, but also the feeling of just moving through the hips. What do you feel in the side bodies, the front of the pelvis? What is your breath doing? And then relax into neutral. Feet onto the ground. Once again, melt into the floor. Practice yielding. What does it feel like to sense the drop into the earth? Does it feel good? And then let's bring our right knee into our chest. Stretch the left leg long on the floor and go ahead and move your ankles and toes around and wake up those feet that are going to help us yield once we're upright. And then switch, left knee into the chest, right leg long on the floor. Keep moving your ankles and toes. Release that left knee, starfish out your body, stretching from your navel to your edges, and wiggle all your fingers and toes. And then on your next breath out, curl in, tuck to a little ball. And moving with breath. Inhale to open big and wide. Exhale to draw in snug and small. One more time. Feeling that big open space. Exhale, knees in, chest up. And then release your head down. Roll over onto your side and come up onto your hands and your knees. All fours. Okay. Just finding some movement here. What's available in your spine. Okay, so as you start to arch and round the spine, can you allow yourself to move into each vertebrae, ripple from one end to the other, and notice each one. Okay, come home. You know, that cessez la me, that sense of coming in, feeling on the inside. This is a gift. This is the cultivation, the bank deposits that we make to help us be in the present moment, whether it's a difficult moment that we want to avoid or whether it's a beautiful moment that we don't want to miss, or a mundane moment. Okay, let's go ahead and move things around any way you want to move. So you feel your pelvis, feel your ribs, your shoulder blades, your skull. Find the symphony that your spine can orchestrate. There's so much mobility in your spine in so many different ways. So let that be free, mobile. And go ahead and find your way back to child's pose. Take the pelvis back toward the heels. Take your knees wide or close, however child's pose feels best for you. And then walk the hands out in front of you. Lengthen through the spine. See what it feels like. Are your shoulders needing a different position? So if you are listening to the whispers of your body instead of just ignoring things that your body is telling you, you might need modifications, little things, little tiny things here and there. So pay attention to the sensations that you feel and use your inner wisdom to experiment and find patterns of movement that feel good. There's no rules. There's only principles to follow. Allow your head to release. Melt into the base of the skull. What's available when you find a little surrender like that? Well, as you walk your hands over to one side, feel the stretch of the side body and the openness of the ribs. Can you expand more? Can you let the breath move? And then walk over to the other side, inching your hands over. Maybe your shoulders don't like that, so you want to have your arms down, but you can still open the ribs. Breathe into space. Melt through the skull. Find your breath. And then come back to center, up onto all fours. And any movement of the spine, find it again. Just swish around, wiggle things, find some warming. Lift the left arm up in the air, swing it underneath you, finding our warming twist. Spread open the collarbones, relax the skull. Breathe into the back body. Inhale, reach that arm all the way up in the air again. Place the hand down onto the ground and switch sides. Arm up. Exhale, slide arm through, gaze toward the floor. Breathe deeply. All right, and then go ahead and find your way back up. Reaching the arms to the sky and place the hand down. Curl the toes under. Feel the bottom of your feet. Wake them up. Spread them out. And then find your way to a dog pose. As you come into the fullness of this pose, feel free to move around at first to kind of move through your body, waking things up. You can bounce or sway. You can bend a knee and drop a heel. You can swing a knee past the midline and let the opposite hip lift. Move your neck around. Anything that feels awakening. And then once you have a few breaths of that, see what it feels like to need all four of your touch points. So you can kind of lift one hand and then root it back, lift the other hand, root it back, lift a foot and root it back, lift the other foot and root it back, and just kind of find some of this so that you can really feel what it feels like to move off the earth and into the earth. And then after a little bit of meeting with all your limbs, let's come into this sense of yielding where we drop our energy into the earth deeply and we rebound from there. Can you feel the energy planes moving in two different directions where we're moving into the earth and the earth is moving into us? Unlock joints, especially middle joints, your knees, your elbows. Unlock the breath. If you tend to be a breath guarder or breath holder, see what you can do to free things up. If you're an eye strainer or a jaw strainer or wherever you take your tension patterns, see if you can go there and find some melting. When we release something, we often have a little more capacity for presence. So it's not all release, we don't want to collapse, but we want to have this capacity to feel. And sometimes when we're a little softer, our feeling tone enhances. Walk your feet forward and come into Uttanasana. Bend your knees, relax your head. Feel free to bobble around your shoulders, your head, sway your hips, whatever feels nice. Inhale for a halfway lift, extending the spine. And then exhale and melting your hands back down. If you have blocks, you can use them. Let's repeat that. Find a half lift. Feel the long spine. Take the heads of the femur bones back. Soften the knees. Lift the sit bones. Hang out here for a moment. Spread out the bones of your feet. See if you can wake up. Move your feet around on the floor and feel them wake up. And then root all four corners of your feet and lift the arches like you're drinking up through straws all the way to the hips. Can you root down and rise up? Finding the breath. Relax your neck. And then when you're ready, bend your knees again and soften. Let your body drop down to the earth, releasing your skull. Push off your feet, rise up, bringing the arms to the sky. If you're at all dizzy, squeeze to the midline with your hands, cross one thigh over the other thigh. Take a moment to find your blood pressure again. And then when you're ready, you can release and relax. Let's shake out the hands. Everybody's on devices way too much, so let's loosen our wrists, our hands, shake out your arms. Okay, and then just do a couple of circles with the shoulders, wake up your shoulders a bit, finding the breath, and then stretch your palms out. Spread your palms, and you can try turning your palms, your fingers down, turning your palms up. Just spread your hands and lift one ear, and then lift the other ear. Experiment with some different positions. You can even anything you want to do with your wrists. You're going to get some nerve sensation no matter what you're doing with your wrists. And then relax that and shake your hands again. And just notice if you, as you come into stillness now, if you have a little bit more life in you, if you feel a little bit more alive in the body, let's find our yielding here. So soften the knees. Imagine the bottomless breath. So the diaphragm has like elevator layers to it, where it's the actual diaphragm, then the pelvic floor, and then the knees, and then the soles of the feet. See what it feels like to go down to the basement, all the way to the soles of the feet. Unlock the knees. Let the energy of your body melt into the earth, and then feel the rebound lift you back up. Can you do this without feeling like your elevator shaft is falling or catapulting upward? Can you have a nice steadiness? Is your chest open? Are your collarbones broad? Are your shoulders a little teeny bit back? Your head just a little teeny bit back? Not so much that you're pushing your chest out and squeezing the shoulder blades, but a sense of openness. Soften the knees. Now let's move into the toes and then move into the heels and just find your balance point. See if you can go back and forth and then maybe go left and right. Maybe go inner feet and outer feet. Just kind of experiment with where your center of gravity lives. Maybe you want your feet a little wider apart. Maybe you want them closer. Whatever you're doing, we're going to eventually, in a moment, allow yourself to now settle into a centered place, a centered bit of gravity. Can you feel the energy move through you? Are your knees unlocked? Are your joints in your spine unlocked? Can you feel the vertebrae have a little mobility, bounceability? Can you allow the femur bones to drop back in the hip joints a little bit so we're not pushing our pelvis forward? Have a sense that you're ready, that you're available for any movement. If someone came to give you a gentle, not a shove, but a little bit of a push, and you didn't, if your eyes were closed and you didn't know where the push was coming from, are you available for anything? Are you available for any movement? So imagine someone's pushing you from your right shoulder, from your left shoulder. If we were in class, I'd have you do this to each other. Eyes closed. Imagine someone's gently touching your sternum and pushing you back. Imagine someone's pressing on the top of your head down to the earth. Imagine someone's buckling your right knee. Imagine someone's buckling your left knee. Imagine someone's pushing your bottom ribs back. Imagine someone's taking your left shoulder blade forward. So all these ways that we can be available for any movement. See if those are kind of balanced in your body. And then come to Tadasana again. Notice if your breath got lost or if it's here. Find it again if it got lost. Present moment awareness. Anything is possible. Inhale, arms up to the sky. Open the chest, lean back a little bit if it feels good, and fold forward. Relax your head, melt. Inhale for a halfway lift. Maybe you want some blocks. Exhale and melt again. Step left foot back, right foot forward, lunging. Expand through your heart. Stretch your crown to your back foot. Let's move into the hamstrings, straightening the front leg a little bit, and then bending the knee again. Maybe you want to lift the toes up and let the calf stretch too. Maybe you want to tuck the chin toward the chest. Maybe you want to lift the chest as you come forward into a lunge. Just going back and forth, opening up the hip flexors, opening up the hamstrings. And then let's go ahead and find stability. Yield again. Rebound up, reaching the arms wherever you're going to find them for Crescent Lunge. Feel your roots. Try not to lock the back knee. Try not to lock the low back. Try not to push the back hip forward. See what it feels like to have that readiness that you had available in all your joints before. If someone were to gently touch you and try to push you on any direction, are you available to balance yourself from it? Breathing deeply. Yield into the earth, rise up through the crown. Finding the breath. Loose joints, deep breaths. And then release the hands down to the ground. Back foot comes forward, fold in half. Step your other foot back, left foot is forward, right foot is back. Because we're closer to the ground, can you feel that? Can you feel that you're dropped down, your center of gravity is lower? What does that give you? And then extend the spine forward as you feel that stretch of the back leg. And let's go back and forth a little bit here. Feel free to lift your front toes up off the floor and let the calf stretch. Take your femur bone back and just back and forth. Noticing the breath, finding the breath, maybe moving the head, maybe opening the chest a little bit, closing the chest a little bit. Let everything be very gentle, flowing. The breath is your guide. And then once you're ready, we're steady, we're grounded. Take a moment before rising up so you feel the yield. And then rise up to crescent lunge. Arms go anywhere you want them to be. So they can be up, they can be out, they can be platter arms, they can be hands to your heart. Anything that supports your well-being right now. Try not to have an attachment to it must be this way. What is your breath asking for? What is the yielding best? How are you best suited in your relationship with the earth? Your center of gravity, your ability to respond to any movement that something might blow at you. All right, and then release the hands, back foot comes forward again, fold in half, neck is soft, halfway lift. Decide whether you want a block between your thighs or no block between your thighs for chair pose. Bring your feet together if you're not using a block. Take your arms back behind you. Palms are facing the floor. Squat. Draw the knees way back. Widen the sit bones. Feel the muscles in the back of your body engage. Feel the floating ribs lift off your thighs. And then when you're ready, rise up to a full chair. Now maybe your arms come down, maybe your hands are at your heart and not up. Maybe your arms are staying up, so it doesn't matter, just be where you are. Finding your breath. And then stand up straight, up onto your tippy toes. Don't worry if your balance is off, just practice playing in balance. Maybe your arms need to come out. And then heels down, arms back, let's flow. Inhale, chair pose. Exhale, arms down. Inhale, up onto tippy toes. All the way up. Don't worry if you're like, whoa, 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 falling. Just keep working with it. Find your breath. Let's do that one more time. Squat down, arms back. Inhale, chair pose. Exhale, arms down again. Torso lower. Up onto your tippy toes. Breathing well, lifting up. And then go ahead and place your feet down onto the ground. Come into a chair, but this time either take your hands, palms to your heart, or arms out to the side instead of up. Let the breath find that rhythm. And we're going to drop weight into our right foot and hover the left foot up in the air just a bit. So one-legged squat, turn your legs on. Imagine you're trying to push yourself straight. Activate your glutes and your hamstrings. And then switch sides. Drop weight into 2 feet for a breath. And then settle into that other leg. Your left leg, lift your right. Just a little hovering. Sometimes having the arms out helps you with balance, but you can, of course, bring them in too. Are you more steady on one side than the other? Imagine pushing yourself upright. We're not, but just imagine it so you kick a little extra energy into your glutes and hamstrings. And 2 feet onto the ground. Rise up, take a deep breath. Exhale, transfer to the center. Palms together at your heart. Stand on your right foot. Lift your left knee up in the air. Figure we just, passed through the equinox. We need to celebrate it with a little bit of balanced postures. Deep breaths. Stabilize your standing leg hip. Try not to let it slunk out to the side. So we're finding that yielding, even on one leg. And then place the other foot down onto the ground. Left foot rooting. Bring up your right knee. Try to keep the left hip hugging in. So we're using our muscles to stabilize instead of locking our joints. So unlock your standing knee. Feel the yielding. So there's a difference between yield and collapse. As we yield, we're still using muscular strength. We're not relying on locked out joints to support us. We're relying on muscles. And then release. Let that foot down onto the ground. 2 feet onto the floor. Rise up, open chest. Exhale, fold forward. Let the knees bend. Halfway lift. The spine grows tall. Exhale, back to dog pose. Take your other foot, the one you never take back, take that one first. Try to walk the path less traveled in your body as often as you can. Breathing well. Melt here. When we're closer to the earth, we have capacity for yielding sometimes a little bit better. Feel into that. Feel how nice it is to breathe when your arms are overhead. Okay, come forward into a plank. Hold yourself steady. Integrate. Find your strength now. The shoulder blades are moving down the back. See if you can feel the bottom tips of the shoulder blades move toward the bottom spine. Integrate through your core. Hug your hands toward each other. You can put your knees down to come down all to the floor. Take a cobra pose. Open the chest. Big breath. Exhale and melt back down. Let's try one more. Shoulder blades down. Feel the work of the back body supported by front body. Exhale and melt again. Come up onto your hands and your knees and swirl things around. Let things become a little bit more free. Come into Vasisthasana. Right hand onto the ground, right knee onto the ground, left leg back. Find one line with foot, knee, or hand, knee, and foot. Open up the chest, shoulder blades move down the back, lift your leg in the air. Feel those outer hip muscles start to work hard. Breathing deeply here, turn your toes straight for a moment, straight forward. And then exhale, back onto all fours and switch sides. Left hand onto the ground, left knee, right foot. Shoulder blades down the back, open across your chest. Lift that right leg in the air. As you lift the leg in the air, internally rotate your thigh a little bit, so feel your feet pointing straight. Doesn't matter how high up off the ground you are, just feel into those outer hip muscles that stabilize us so much when we're on one foot. Breathing well. And then relax, come back onto all fours. Come onto your heels for a minute, just shake out your wrists if you had any trouble with being on your wrists. When you're on all fours and your wrists hurt, you can always take forearms onto the blocks instead. Find all fours, spinal balancing, lift the left leg straight back behind you. Toes are facing toward the floor. We're gonna bring our leg out to the side. Keep facing the toes toward the floor. Stretch your right arm out in front of you and then bring it out to the side. Integrate with your hand and your knee on the floor, hug them toward each other. Feel there's so much symphony of integration happening in a pose like this. How's your breath? And then come back, place that hand and knee down onto the ground and change sides. Right leg is back, toes pointing toward the floor. Bring that leg out to the side. Bring your arm out in front of you. Left arm, and then when you're ready, bring your left arm out to the side. Modify anything that needs to be modified. Feel the work of the outer hips. Turn that piriformis on, to turn your glutes on. All right, and then let's go ahead and relax. Come back to center. Place the hand down onto the ground. Dog pose. Lift up and lengthen. Find your breath. Last thing we'll do to turn on those balance muscles is pull your feet apart from each other in dog pose. Split the mat. Extend through your spine. And then walk your feet forward and come into Uttanasana. Fold. Rise up. Bringing the arms to the sky. Practice a moment of yielding. Once you get down here, practice a moment of yielding. Close your eyes if you want, open your eyes if you want, arms at your sides, arms, palms together. What's gonna give you the sense of presence that we're looking for? Unlock the knees. Let's stand on the right leg, lift the left knee up, and we're gonna come into tree pose. So place your foot either your inner thigh or somewhere in your calf, or toes can still be on the floor. Work into the integration of this pose. What does it feel like to become the roots of a tree, a trunk of a tree? Drop into the earth. Rise up through your crown. Soften the knee you're standing on. Hug that hip in so we're stable. Breathe well. And then lift your arms up in the air or out to the side or wherever you want them to be. Try to focus on something that doesn't move. And if you want, bend your knee a lot. See what it feels like to have like a little bit of a softness in that joint. And then lift back up, find the rebound. Soften the base of the skull. And then relax and bring your leg back down to the ground. 2 feet onto the ground. Shake things out if you want. You can always jump, bounce, swivel and sway, anything that feels nice. And then find the roots of your left leg coming into the earth. Bring your right leg up. Now you may have one side that's a little better balanced than the other. You can always hold a wall or support yourself with a piece of furniture. Try not to stick the hip out. See if you can draw the hip in. The head of the femur bone moves back and the knee is what's soft, releasing so that you can yield the foot into the ground. Feel the foot. All the 4 points of your feet. The arches lift, the bones drop. Open up your right knee. See if you can keep your torso facing forward. Decide where you want your arms to be. Finding the breath. Find a spot to look at that doesn't move. Maybe test your balance by closing your eyes or changing the position of your head. Don't worry if you fall out. You can always just come right back in. There's no attachment. If you're all wobbly, try holding on to something so that you have the ability, I'm not close enough to a piece of furniture, but have the ability to support yourself if you need it. Release your leg down onto the ground. Take a deep breath in. Float your arms up, exhale, and fold forward. Halfway lift. Let's go ahead and step our right foot forward, left foot back, coming into a lunge. When you're ready, yield into the earth and rise up. Turn and open to the side. Find Parsvottanasana. So this pose, such a gift, right? To have this wide stance, to have the external rotation of our leg. Where do you want your arms to be? Okay, see if you can organize your pelvis around that front femur bone. So stack, line up, not stack, but line up your sit bone, your knee and your ankle, and track your knee in line with your middle toe. Stabilize that, and then organize your pelvis around that femur bone. What feels comfortable? Organize your chest, your spine around what your pelvis is doing. Line things up. So your pose may not look like the quote-unquote pose usually does. Find what's working for you. Root both feet, soften the back knee. Can you yield into that foot? Can you rebound off that foot? Breathing deeply. Is there a yielding to happen? Is there a surrender to happen within the effort? Let's go ahead and straighten our leg. 2 feet wide on the mat. Take your thigh bones back. Soften your knees as much as you want. Come forward. Feel the balance across your sacrum. Put your hands on blocks or on the floor. See what it feels like to elongate the spine, to take the heads of the femur bones back, to soften the knees, to feel the roots of your feet. All right, rise back up. Turn your left foot out. Find your breath. Coming into Virabhadrasana on this side. So remember, if you have joint instability, this might be the 100-year-old self talking to you. You can always support. Okay, so a block can be such a nice attribute to put a block against a piece of furniture to support your shin. This can be a great way of keeping your joints stable in this posture if your knee does not like lunging. Lots of knees don't like lunging, so support yourself however you need. Your ankle, your knee, and your sit bone are on a plane lined up with your middle toe. Allow your pelvis to move around that anchored place. Do you want to turn your pelvis a little bit more toward your front leg? Do you want to turn your pelvis open? What's going to keep you stable in that front line and as open as you can be? Line up, stack your chest to ribs over your pelvis wherever your pelvis ended up. So you may not be facing your torso to the long edge of your mat. You might be turned a little bit. Find the breath wherever you are. Find the arms wherever you want them to be. Drop the shoulders. Feel a sense of melting. Where is there surrender available to you? Where is the yielding? Is your back knee locked out? If it's locked, you can't yield into that foot. So unlock the knee and then press the foot and rebound off the foot. Feel that transfer through the pelvis. All right, and let's go ahead and straighten that leg. One more time, turn your feet to the long edge. Enjoy this. So your knees can bend as much as you need to. Your hands can go as high as you need to. See if you can feel the symmetry across your sacrum, the sense of freedom through your pelvis and your belly. Relax the breath. Okay, let's heel toe your feet in. Come toward the center. We're still facing the long edge of our mat. We're going to come into Artichondrasana. So we need a block, more than likely. Some people can put their hand all the way to the floor. But why not use something that's going to give your torso space? We're going to start with our right foot. So we're still finding that line of tracking your sit bone, your knee, and your foot, your ankle, in line with your middle toes. So we want to have that line available to us when we come into the posture. Sometimes we turn our foot, we turn our hip. See what you can do to let that be your stable ground. So as you come up into the pose, I'm going to back up so I don't hit my furniture. When you come up into the pose, be very mindful that that foot stayed, that it didn't turn in or out. Stack everything up and then organize the pelvis around that femur bone that you're standing on. Let the femur bone root back into the hip joint. And then see how much openness. Can you roll the pelvis over the femur bone and open it? Only to the place where your body says it's okay without losing that line. If your knee starts to turn in, back away from trying to open your pelvis so much. Stabilize. Use your core to do some of this work. Use your glutes and your hamstrings and your hips to do some of this work. Stabilize yourself without locking your knee you're standing on. Bend it, yield, breathe. What's available? If your balance is off, don't worry. Just bring yourself to where you are. All right, and then we're going to take a giant step back, staying in the same plane with our pelvis. Come on up and let's do the second side. You can always try this pose with your back against a wall. You can put your foot on something. You can hold something. There's ways to support your balance. If your balance is kind of taking over the posture, sometimes when our balance is all we can think about, we can't find the alignment of the pose. So help yourself so that you understand the feeling tone of the pose, and eventually the balance will come. Okay, so these are the deposits we make in the bank so that we find this presence. Doesn't matter what the pose looks like. It doesn't matter if you have good balance. It's the working through it that helps you. Line up your ankle, your knee, your femur bone in the joints, your sit bone. Go ahead and bend that knee. Come up onto that foot. Try not to let your foot turn in. Once you have that alignment and your knee is soft, feel the pelvis organize around that femur bone. So if you can turn and open the pelvis a little bit, great. And if that makes your knee want to torque in, don't open so much. So find the balance of your openness where you're available today. Flex your feet, feel your feet. Even the foot in the air can yield a little bit. Soften the knee you're standing on. Feel the rebound of the earth moving through your body. Engage lots of muscles. Your core, your outer hips, your quads, even the muscles along your spine. Breathe well. You don't have to turn your head. You can turn your head. Be active all the way through your crown. Be active all the way through your feet. Lift that leg an inch higher. Okay, and then take a giant step back. Come out the way you came in. Come back to the front of your mat. And one more time, take your feet wide on the mat. You can have your hands on blocks. Feel the neutral. You know, when we do standing poses, we take our pelvis out of neutral pretty fast. So let's find the neutral again. Femur bones back, knees are soft. Find a deep breath and relax into the posture. Melt. Come into an inversion a little bit. Maybe your head can drop below your heart. Is there yielding in your feet? Is there softness in your knees? Are you in your present moment self? Are you gathering tools to stay in the difficult moments? One step at a time, one breath at a time. The journey of 1,000 steps begins with one step. Turn back to the front of your mat and come to dog pose. Extending through the spine, taking some deep breaths. Knees are soft, elbows are soft. Rebound into the earth and back. Last time coming through a vinyasa, come forward into a plank. Maybe you want to come into chaturanga and do up dog. Maybe you want to come down onto the ground and do Superman. Just see whatever you're doing, let there be balance across your sacrum. Hug onto the sacrum with your muscles. And then relax and come down onto your belly. And then come onto all fours. Any swish, swish, swish that feels good. Deep breaths. And then relax and melt into child's pose. So balance isn't necessarily about standing on one foot. Can you balance the breath? Do you tend to always have inhales longer than exhales? Do you guard the exhales? See if you can release the exhales in balance with the inhale. Can you even feel the sense that the ribs have balance in how far out they expand and how far back they recoil? You have balance of both the front and back body expanding and recoiling, not just left and right. All right, let's go ahead and come onto our back. Bend your knees. Deep breaths here. Melt your body down one more time. All right, let's go ahead and take reverse pigeon pose. Now, if you have a burning desire to flip over and do pigeon pose, then go for it. Okay. One of the beautiful things about pigeon pose on your back, reverse pigeon pose, is that there's a lot of doling out to do. So depending on your range of motion, you can keep your foot on the floor. Your right foot is on your left knee. You can keep your left foot on the floor far away from your pelvis. You can bring your left foot closer to the pelvis. You can put your left foot up on a wall or a piece of furniture. You can reach back with your hands and grab onto your hamstring. If you reach back and grab with your hamstring, notice your neck. If you just curled a little bit, it would be better to put a blanket underneath your head so that we can release the spine a little bit more easily in this stretch. So stretching the hips after balancing, balancing on one leg requires a lot of effort with a lot of the hip stabilizing muscles. So let's just enjoy some of the ease that comes. Feel free to rock left and right. Feel free to take one hand on your thigh and one hand on your knee and press the knee away. There's all sorts of ways to enhance the sensation of release in your outer hip. Relax and bend your knees. Put your feet on the ground. So try not to overdo the hip stretching. It sometimes can be very destabilizing, so make sure you're always going where your range of motion takes you and not pushing beyond. Before we do the second side, do a little anterior and posterior tilting of the pelvis. Lift the top of the sacrum and dip the tailbone into the earth, and then dip the top of the sacrum and lift the tailbone. Just going back and forth into nutation and counter nutation of the sacrum, releasing the pelvis and the spine. When you're ready for the second side, left foot on right knee, check in. How is this feeling? Is your pelvis doing weird things to try to accommodate? Are you lifting and hiking one hip? Are you leaning over to one side? If you can't find balance across the back side of your pelvis, if your sacrum feels even on the floor, that's a really good thing. If you feel leany one way or the other, see if you can come into the posture with balance. Decide how far you want to go. You can have your foot on the floor. You can drag your foot closer to your sit bones so that you get a little deeper stretch. You can put your foot on a piece of furniture or a wall. You can grab behind your thigh with your hands. You can have one hand on your leg and the other hand on your left knee. So you experiment with where this posture lands for your body. Do you curl your pelvis and your neck to do this pose? Do you need a little support underneath your neck? Can you widen the sit bones and feel that even balance across the sacrum again? How is the surrender here? When you focus on all the little details, are we forgetting to just drop into the earth and yield? Are we forgetting to breathe? All right, let's relax and come out of that posture. Roll over onto your side. Sorry to make you get back up, but just one seated posture before we lay back down. If you want to be on the edge of a blanket, go for it. Put the edge of a blanket underneath you. Take your right leg straight. Bend your left knee. Okay. I'm going to give you two choices here. You can either keep your leg like this, or you can cross your leg over. If you want to stretch your piriformis muscle more, the more you cross the leg over and kind of internally rotate that leg, you'll get a little bit deeper of a stretch. So find the lift of your spine. Make sure you're on the front of your sit bones. Be very mindful to not torque your pelvis. See if you can keep a neutral pelvis. So that means a neutral low back, a neutral curve in your low back. It means being on the center of your sit bones with even weight left and right. Feel the lift and expansion of your spine, and only twist where your breath takes you, not where your arm leverage takes you. Okay, and then release and relax. Change the cross of your legs. So switch. Left leg is straight, right leg can be on the inside, and you can twist like this, or you can cross your leg over. Decide what's better for your sacrum. If you tend to overdo twists, which are not always so good for your back or your sacroiliac joints, instead of taking your elbow to your outer knee, wrap your forearm around your knee. This will prevent you from going too deeply. Stabilize your pelvis. Sit bones, even weight on the center of the sit bones, the neutral curve in your lumbar spine. As you twist, try to feel that your pelvis is in a neutral place. The spine lifts up. The twist only happens with the breath. Can you yield your pelvis? Can you breathe your way into the twist? All right, let's go ahead and relax and come out of there. Come back onto our back. Bring your knees to your chest. Rock a little bit from left to right. Find any last bit of your practice that your body needs. So do you have a pose that your 100-year-old self is asking for? Do you have a pose that you've been avoiding? Of course, only do that pose if it's in proper sequence to what we're doing now. I mean, I wouldn't go flying into a big back bend right now. And for Shavasana, as you come into Shavasana, if there is a part of your body that you've been ignoring for whatever reason, you don't like the way it feels, you have pain, you're angry at it because it's not moving the way it used to, you're disappointed in something, maybe you don't like the way part of you looks, see if you can find those banished parts of yourself and bring them into the fold. Maybe, you have stomach aches or headaches or whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. Can you bring any banished part of you back into the breath? Let that part of you yield and surrender. Can you make friends? Can you be at ease? Can you be compassionate and supportive of yourself? Is there a way for your body to teach you how to accept? Is there a way for your practice to teach you how to not deny, how to not avoid? Can you accept the full presence of this moment? Yield your whole body into the earth. Everything that you can feel touching the ground, can you melt, be received? Can you melt the eyes? Any hidden tension, seek it, find it, rest it. You are the breath. Let's begin deepening our breathing again. Soften your eyes, soften your body again. Become a full breathing body. Let's find our way into any movement that works for you to help you come out of Shavasana. Eventually finding your way onto your side. Let's come up to sit. Allow your shoulders to release. Allow your eyes to release. Yield into the earth and rebound again. Offer your practice. Share your presence with another. Namaste. Thank you, everyone. Blessings on the day.